Hey, we made it live. Woo! Hey, friends. Bart here. We just got done with our study group, and it's time to take a little few minutes and just kind of recap what the evening held in store for us. So we'll just kind of get the live stream warmed up here. I hope folks are doing all right out there. We got the State of the Union address going on. Watch out. So tonight, the name of the game was all about digging into kind of a different mode for me in the study group. Previously, I had been bringing a lot of lessons to kind of dig into everybody. And what I was finding was that half the time, some people would come one week and then they might come another week. And we already covered that subject. And so tonight, it was all about Q&A, just question and answer. So for me, I know a lot of folks are out there in the CBT Nuggets catalog and they're watching our training videos, or maybe they're checking out some other training providers out there. And invariably, you're going along and you're like, what was that thing? What did Bart just say? What was that? Man, I wish he was here. I would totally ask him about that right now. And so that is exactly what these study groups are all about, so that you can take those opportunities when you're in there watching videos and you're studying a subject and you're ready to go and get a little more information and ask an expert. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make myself available to the people of the internet and to the people of the world out there so that we can get some of those solutions architecting questions answered person to person. And the interesting thing for me is that I started out as a live trainer. So I was usually in classrooms, in people's environments, like in their actual office buildings. I would go into their conference rooms and we would train right there in their buildings. We would eat their sometimes not so great food, but in general, we were there like working with them in their environment. And that means that they have me. And even if I'm presenting material, we still have a chance to go off on a conversation over here about this product that they're working on, or this thing that they read about recently. And in a lot of ways, those opportunities, those were some of the most exciting conversations that we would get ourselves into. It was the sidebar pieces. And also my ability to kind of bring that and contextualize it, keep it back into the group so that everybody can get something out of it. And this is something that I really try to get out of the study groups. Tonight was a good one. We had, I think, about 10 people in there. We did make the study group public tonight. Now, I didn't realize it was going to be totally public. That was awesome. And I appreciate CBT Nuggets helping me get that set up. So that means that 2 weeks from now, what is it? Today is the 14th. Would that be? Yeah, today's the 4th. So that'll be on the 18th. We're going to have another study group coming up, and it's going to be public as well. A couple of other interesting opportunities that are be going on. Yeah, no worries, IBME, man. Just stick with what you're working on. It's not like it's time lost. All that stuff is going to compile. It's going to add up to a bigger experience later on. So I definitely encourage people. There's really not really bad experiences to have there, just as long as you keep sponging and you keep making sure that you get plenty of takeaways from it. And I'm sure you are taking care of that, I would expect. So one of the other things that's coming up here soon, since this one was a little hard to kind of recap, we've got a tech panel coming up. And so tonight got me thinking about the tech panel conversation because we had a lot of really self-proclaimed first-time AWSers, a lot of new folks, a lot of people coming from the networking world wanting to get into AWS. And that meant we were talking about a lot of AWS basics, which is fine. I love to talk about that stuff. And often it's the most valuable things that we can discuss. I mean, the virtual private cloud networking model at AWS is not an open and shut book. And if you're coming from other networking worlds and trying to learn it, there are a lot of questions that come up along the way. And so tonight, one of the big ones, I had a student who's a kind of an ex-Azure learner moving into the AWS space, a lot of big questions about how VPC work and the different levels of administrative isolation within AWS. Yeah, well, IBME, I understand that totally. So you start with the practitioner and you're looking at the architect. I've talked to a lot of folks in the AWS certified community that are kind of in that same situation as well. Yeah, okay. And you're kind of stuck with the help desk. IBME, what do you think? Would you be moving somewhere internally there to another division, or would you be thinking I'd probably be leaving the company to kind of move on beyond that? Just kind of curious, just chatting with a learner that we've got here on the message. Cool. Well, let me know what you think about that if you respond. So one of the interesting things that we got into tonight was somebody was asking, okay, well, what about logging into an instance like an EC2 instance versus logging into the AWS management console. And that was a really big part of what we discussed tonight, was making sure we understood those two different authentication realms are very much isolated at the beginning in the AWS world. That means that if you're logging into instances, or you're logging into an application that's running on an instance, or a database that's running on your instances, those are local authentication accounts. That's an operating system user, a database level user, some other user that's specific to the application, like WordPress would be a great example of this. And then if you're logging into AWS Management Console, or interacting with S3 or DynamoDB, or calling any of the AWS APIs, those are typically identity and access management credentials. So oil and water, totally different authentication realms that exist within there. So that was a big part of our conversation tonight. Oh, I think I remember you saying that, IBeam. You were saying that you work for a managed services provider. Honestly, man, that's a pretty good setup. The idea that you can work across different techs with different customers that are in different industries as well. I kind of think that that's some of the best opportunities for learning out there. So I think that that's a pretty good spot. If you have a chance to transition into something that's more, maybe not totally cloud, but cloud related, cloud adjacent, that might be a great fit. And that was another thing that came up tonight. We had a couple of new folks that were asking, what's the viability for hiring? Where should we be looking? And one of the things that I cautioned people was, be careful only putting cloud in the search goal there. I mean, you go out on LinkedIn, you get out on the, the different resume sites and the job submission sites out there, and you're definitely going to find people using the term cloud. But the thing that's interesting for me is that a lot of people first getting into cloud is that they think cloud it's just a part of IT. And it's really not. It really is kind of the superset of things. And so that means that you may not necessarily want to get a position just called cloud architect, cloud admin, cloud developer. You might find a lot of other roles within organizations that are cloud enabled, but you aren't necessarily cloud direct. So I think that's kind of important to remember here. You could be precluding yourself from positions at organizations that might have a lot more to do with cloud computing than you would think. Remember the three big technologies: automation, virtualization, and networking. So as you look at those three different areas, those are the subsets of cloud computing. Those are the subsets of technology that you could dig further into. And I always try to get people thinking about this part of it. Number one, because it's important to understand what the real technologies are. Cloud itself is not really that much of a good example of a technology. It's very much more about a service delivery mechanism than really a new technology. But when you get into looking at cloud computing, a lot of people know more about cloud than they think they do because of the misconception around what cloud is, where it starts and stops, what it smells like. And I'll tell you right now, job recruiters in organizations who are beginning to take on cloud style services, a lot of times they just flat out, they don't know what they're looking for. They don't really even know what that job title or that role looks like in their organizations. So that's something that I always try to get people thinking about, is go and look for other opportunities that would get you close. And don't just get thinking, I have to work in the cloud. Remember that a lot of the support jobs of the class systems tech, a lot of that stuff is transitioning into cloud support roles. You're going to find yourself working with that a lot more. One of the final things that I brought up there was that remember that there's no bad cloud service to work on. Even if you're just supporting Office 365, that is a cloud service. That is software as a service, and it's one of the most important software as a service products out there as far as like user base and consumption wise. So taking an existing world of technology experience wherever you are currently and adding that understanding of any cloud principles at all puts you that much farther ahead. And often the final piece comes in making sure that when you go into a job interview for something that says more like systems automation engineer or network automation engineer, or maybe cloud engineer or cloud support or cloud architecting, those roles, you might need to help that organization understand how you are the best fit, because you know that cloud is built on these other technologies. And even though I'm maybe not using the same thing you're using, I'm only a couple of degrees away from understanding how that works. And in a big way, I think that's almost one of the golden skills to being in the cloud. You have to be able to show that not only can you learn, but that you're able to go and really self-consume and self-perpetuate yourself along these pathways. If you're going to get into the cloud, you're going to keep staying in the world of IT. If you've been in it at any time at all, you probably understand how much learning there is to be done there. I think I want to get the Net Plus before the Solutions Architect. I can't say that that's a bad idea, IBme. I love the Net Plus. It's where I started. I do think networking is a really core part of cloud computing. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. That Net Plus is going to do you really well. I know so many people who got started working with the Net Plus. The cool thing about the Net Plus is that the modern Net Plus that's out there, it also includes the A Plus. So in order to pass that, you're also getting that hardware understanding as well. And even though cloud computing is really not that much about hardware, you're still understanding what it means to have a CPU, what it means to depend on RAM and to understand storage. I hear you there too, IBme. I love AWS. And I'm just kind of rapping about some of the stuff that we talked about tonight. The funny thing for me tonight too is that a lot of this introductory stuff that I would call beginner, I start trying to get into it in the study group, and all of a sudden it just kind of explodes on the page, and I realize, wow, I have, in my mind, wildly oversimplified what it is that we're talking about right now. And so I have to really kind of check myself and say, okay, go back through it methodically, make sure that people understand all of the pieces that you're building up to, because there are a lot of layers to AWS, and having been at it so long, I definitely forget that. It's the curse of knowledge. It's a classic trainer's dilemma. So really appreciate that about the study groups, because they give me a chance to really ground myself and understand what it is to be someone who's learning to start out in AWS for the first time, which is a crazy place to be. So can I ask you, IBme, since you're hanging a little bit there, what is it about AWS that makes you jump in here and say, Bart, I love AWS? Because I'm just curious. I love AWS too. What is it about it that's got you excited, makes you want to work in it, makes you feel like it's something you should move towards? Just curious. All right. So as we let those last little questions simmer in, looking ahead towards the rest of the month, we got another study group coming up in 2 weeks. Our tech panel, it's going to be on virtualization. We're going to have Jacob Moran with us. He's our big VMware guru within the CBT catalog, amongst a bunch of other things. He's got a lot of great hats that he can put on and train with. So I'm excited to hang with Jacob. And of course, my good buddy Jeff Kish is going to be joining us, representing the Cisco networking world. And we are going to be talking about hypervisors. We're going to be talking about the world of virtualization, not just running virtual machines either, but also talking about application virtualization, streaming apps, and the entire concept of abstracting things through virtualization layers. So I really hope that if you're watching, make sure you come and check out that tech panel. It is going to be publicly available. We'll be getting some registration links flying around on the internet there. In fact, I believe if you take a quick Google February tech panel CBT nuggets, you should be able to find a registration link for that webinar. So please sign up. It's going to be fun. It'll be a great little hour. There's going to be some funny CBT nuggets trivia that we'll throw in there as well. Again, publicly available. Oh yeah, IBme, yeah, absolutely. It felt like it has a little bit of everything, networking. Yeah. Oh man, I love it. So I don't know. Have you been watching any of the network Data Knox Meraki collab project that I was doing with him? I think that's one of the coolest things I've worked on in a while. If you guys are out there and you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, my good buddy here at CBT Nuggets, Data Knox Hutchinson, him and I have been working together to get Meraki webhook events to send into my AWS account. And we were going to dig into it a little bit tonight. We didn't get to it. Maybe next week we'll talk about it a little bit more. But what I've been doing is working with an AWS serverless application, which is a combination of Lambda functions, the AWS API gateway, and then CloudFormation to manage and build that application. And IBme, I tell you, man, it's one of the coolest little rigs that I've ever put together. Really enjoyed working with it, boning up on a lot of the syntax for how the serverless application model works. Very exciting stuff. And you're right, man, AWS has tons of things to focus on. And you put it perfectly there. There's so many things you can build and so many architectural options. That's why I point out that cloud computing is not a slice of the pie. It's the whole stinking thing. You've got all of these different facets of IT available through cloud service providers. And that's part of what keeps it fun for me. Make sure that I don't get bored. It ensures that I constantly have new things to learn and continue studying up on. So looking forward to the tech panel. Got another study group coming up down the road. Of course, we got more Azure stuff going on here at CBT Nuggets as well. Jeremy Chara's got his Cisco stream that he's been doing on YouTube. So keep an eye out for that. Jeff Kish has got his live sessions going on. And Keith Barker is also doing his YouTube sessions as well. We're just trying to keep it fun, trying to keep it live. I appreciate everybody's support out there. Yeah, sure. IBME. Well, you know what? Maybe in one of the next sections, yeah, we could take a look at how to do some command line uploads. You know what? The next one will be public. So I will try to reach out to everybody a lot more this time. The next one, and make sure everybody knows that that's available, because you could come and join us next time and we could do that exact thing. And I would love to do that. So in the end, friends, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for tonight. I appreciate everybody hanging out for a little while. Remember, study hard. AWS has got a bunch of certification changes coming up in March. It's going to be a big thing to kind of talk about. I've got some new playlists hitting the catalog to keep up with all of those changes as well. So I really appreciate everybody hanging out. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe, share it around to some of their friends, anybody else who might be interested in getting AWS certified. And I really appreciate your time. So beyond that, friends, we'll see you in the cloud. Happy studying. Stay AWS certified. Keep working hard. And we'll see you out there, friends. Have a good evening. Thanks again, IBME. We'll see you next time, buddy. Woo!